Hi everyone, you're welcome back to my channel. My name is Nancy, and if you're new to my channel, kindly subscribe, share and like my videos, and also put on a notification bell to be notified when I upload new videos. So in today's tutorial, I'll be showing you how to make a romper jumpsuit, and these are the measurements we need. We need the shoulder measurements, the half length, the hip circumference, and the center back to the sleeve length. The name of the fabric is called a crepe fabric, and the amount of the fabric I used in making this romper play suit is 3 yards. But right now, the amount of fabric I placed on this table is just 2 yards, so let's start with that first. So I would say that 2 yards is the perfect amount of fabric you need in making the upper parts of this romper, because the wideness of this fold is determined by the measurement you took from the center back to sleeve length. Alright, so the first step is to fold the fabric into 2 equally, which I already did, and the next step is to mark the starting line. Now I'm going to mark ½ inch below the starting line, and this will serve as the shoulder allowance for joining the shoulder of the front piece to the back piece. So the half length of this romper is 16 inches. I added 1 inch sewing allowance, which made it 17 inches. Please also take note that this is the back piece of the upper part of the romper. So you might be wondering why I'm cutting out the back piece. The reason why I'm cutting out the back piece first is because I need to get the back piece to be able to achieve the front piece. So in this case, I need to use the back piece to achieve the center overlapping v-neck at the center front of the upper piece. So let's finish up with the back piece first. So the next step is to mark the neck measurements. I'll be marking 3.5 inches as the neck width and 2 inches as the neck depth to connect the 2 points together in form of a curved neckline. The next step is to mark from the center back to the sleeve length. So from the center back to the sleeve length is 32 inches. I added 1 inch sewing allowance, which made it 33 inches. Now I'll extend this 33 inches point vertically downwards to the half cut. Take note that 32 inches is not a standard measurement. It depends on the measurement you take from the center back to the sleeve length. I've made these jumpsuits for 4 different people, and I could tell that they have different sleeve length measurements from the center back. It can be 30, it can be 31 or 32. Looking at this measurement, you observe that I do not have the bust circumference, the waist circumference and the thigh. What I have here is just the hip circumference. The reason I chose the hip circumference is because the hip circumference has the largest measurement of the body, and since it's a loose romper, the hip circumference is very essential. So I placed my tape on the starting line to mark the hip circumference divided by 4, and I added 4 inches sewing allowance to the side. The next step is to extend this point vertically downwards to the half cut. Now on this point, I'll place my tape above the half cut to mark 2.5 inches. To use a straight ruler to connect this point to this angle as shown. So this part is going to be under the armhole, and to prevent it from squeezing, you need to make a curve to connect the 2 lines together. The next step is to trim out the back piece. The next step is to slant the shoulder. I should have done this earlier, but because there are too many lines on the fabric, I don't want us to get confused. So now to slant the shoulder, at this point I'll mark 1.5 inches below the starting line to connect it to the neck width as shown. So this is for the back piece. The next step is to place the fabric on the table, making sure that the fabric is folded into two equally. Now I'm going to place the back piece on the fabric so we can be able to achieve the front piece. And the difference between the front piece and the back piece is the overlapping in the center front. So that's the reason why after placing the back piece on the fabric, I have about 3 inches fold on this side. So from the center of the fold, I have 3 inches before the center fold of the back piece. Now I'm going to mark the neck width for the front piece as shown. To connect the neck width to this extended 3 inches I marked earlier. So this small triangle you see here is what forms the overlapping in the center front. The next step is to use the chalk to trace out the back piece on the fabric to achieve the body of the front piece. When making an overlapping v-neck, there are little steps you need to consider to prevent some mistakes. For instance, if you wear a dress with an overlapping v-neck, you realize that at times the v-neck isn't balanced on the chest. Maybe it has this extra folded fabric or curve that shows that there is a spacing on the v-neck. So to prevent these mistakes, I'll place my tape on the waistline to mark the midpoint. And on this sharp edge, so I marked ½ inch above the half cut on that folded part to connect the point to the midpoint as shown. So by eliminating this part, we have succeeded in getting an overlapped balanced neckline. The next step is to cut out the front piece. So I would like to sew the upper part of the romper before cutting the lower parts of the romper. So let's get started. The next step is to place the front piece on the back piece. To secure the shoulder slope by ½ inch. The next step is to secure the sides by ½ inch. The next step is to cut the same fabric in form of a bias tape to secure the neckline of the half cut. So I turn the top to the right side of the fabric, and the next step is to secure the overlapping at the center front as shown. So after pinning the overlapped parts, I'll take this to the sewing machine to secure them on each other. The next step is to secure the sleeve opening by folding it half an inch and further folding it in by half an inch. So this is all for the upper part of the romper. For the lower part of the romper, I folded the fabric into two. The first step is to mark the starting line, and I also marked 1 inch below the starting line. So this horizontal line will serve as the waistline, to which it will be attached to the waistline of the upper part of the romper. So let's get started. Like I said earlier, the hip circumference is very essential in making this loose romper. So on the waistline, I'll place the hip measurements divided by 4 plus 4 inches sewing allowance to the side to extend this point vertically downwards. So the length of the upper parts of the romper taken from the shoulder to the half cut is 16 inches. This simply means that I have to deduct 16 inches from the waistline of the shirt. So you can see where I placed my tape. After that, the next step is to mark the crotch depth line. The crotch depth line is 29 inches. To get the crotch depth measurements, you place your tape vertically from your shoulder down to the crotch. The next line is the length of the romper. So the length of the romper is 32 inches. I added 1 inch sewing allowance, which made it 33 inches. So for clarity, this is the waistline, the crotch depth line, and the full length of the romper. And the wideness of this box was gotten from dividing the hip circumference by 4 plus 4 inches sewing allowance. So to get the crotch curve, I'll place my tape horizontally to extend the crotch depth line to 2 inches. The next step is to mark 2 inches vertically above the crotch depth line as shown, to connect the two lines together in form of a curve. The next step is to mark 1 inch sewing allowance to the thigh circumference. Now I'll connect the point to the crotch curve as shown. So with how far we have gone with this romper, you could see that the waist, the bust, and the thigh circumference isn't needed since it's a loose romper. And if you try to include those measurements, the romper might end up being fitted. We have 2 pieces for the front piece. The next step is to place the front piece on the folded fabric to cut out the back piece. The difference between the front piece and the back piece of this shirt is that the waist of the front piece is lower than the waist of the back piece. So on the center seam of the back piece, I'll be marking 2 inches to connect it to this edge. The next step is to secure the center seam for both the front piece and the back piece separately by ½ inch. The next step is to secure the side of the shorts by ½ inch. After securing the sides, the next step is to secure the flap by ½ inch. Just to be sure we're on the right track, the next step is to take the waist circumference of the half cut and the waist circumference of the shorts, making sure that the both of them are equal. So what I have here is 26 inches for the waist of the half cut, and for the waist of the shorts I also have 26 inches. So I notched the center of the waistline and I placed it directly on the center seam of the shorts to secure the waistline together by ½ inch. Now I'll take it to the overlocking machine to weave the waistline joining. The next step is to make the drawstring casing on the waistline. To achieve this, you need to take the measurements of the overall waistline. Here I have 26 inches, and for the back waistline it should also be 26 inches. Altogether I have 52 inches. So this is the band I'm going to be using for the drawstring casing. It's 2 inches wide, and for the length I'll be making use of the waist circumference. The waist circumference is 52 inches. I added 1 inch to that for the sewing allowance, and that made it 53 inches. So the length of the band is 53 inches. Now to secure the band on the waistline, make sure I have a single part of the romper, which means that if I'm sewing on top of the waistline, it doesn't affect the back piece of the romper. Now this is the band I'm working with. I'm going to fold the edge in by ½ inch, and I'll place it ½ inch above the waistline, which is on the center seam, to secure it round the waistline. Alright guys, you can see I've gotten to the center seam of the front piece. Now I'm also going to fold the edge of the band. You can see it's separately done, making sure that it doesn't overlap on the second band. So to close the drawstring casing, I'm going to fold the edges of the band by ½ inch and place it in such a way that it covers the waistline to secure the edges all through the waistline. Alright guys, this is how the drawstring casing should look like, and you can see the center of the hole where the rope will be inserted into. The next step is to use a safety pin to pass the rope into the drawstring casing. The final step is to secure the leg opening by folding it in by half an inch and further folding it in by half an inch. Alright guys, I hope this tutorial was helpful, and I hope we've also learned one or two things. You should give it a try, and if you are new to my channel, kindly subscribe, share and like my videos, and also put on your notification bell to be notified when I upload new videos. Thank you.